In the culture war, there are no winners, just podcasters. Only a few are willing to risk their lives in the face of some of the dumbest ideas to have ever captured human civilization. Every week, we, Megan Daum and Sarah Hayter, humbly accept this mission in order to bring you conversations that are equal parts stunning, brave, and unhinged. Welcome to A Special Place in Hell. Morning, Sarah. You're looking very... You don't look very spotted.
I'm looking normal. Yeah, that's makeup doing its magic. Yeah, I'm spotted now. I developed a rash. I don't know how attractive this is going to sound to people.
It's good for our audio. It's good
listeners. For ratings. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Encourage people to listen on audio.
Yeah, and I was taking an antibiotic, and I'm not allergic to any antibiotics. I thought, but then turns out you can develop one as you're taking the antibiotic. There's like a delayed reaction that can happen. And that's what happened to me. And I had this like full body, like spotted rash. It was pretty grotesque, pretty scary for a couple of days. It's faded a lot now. And now I can cover it up and be on camera.
Wow. Okay. Well,
yeah. I don't know. I didn't know that could happen. Like as you're taking it, your body decides, I guess, to sensitize itself and have an autoimmune reaction, I guess, against the antibiotic.
Yeah.
But at least the middle ear infection cleared up. So that's good.
You shouldn't be taking any antibiotics, no vaccines, no drugs.
I
nothing.
don't know what to do. Because it's just been a chain reaction. I got sick, and then I got a middle ear infection from whatever it was, COVID, I don't know what it was. And then I started taking antibiotics for that, and then I developed a reaction to the antibiotics, and now I'm just trying to heal.
Okay.
Well, so
I was happy to postpone by a day because I had a day of municipal. I was in a hellscape of municipalities just trying to get some documents signed, whatever. It doesn't matter. But suffice it to say, there was a moment where I was told that a document that I had notarized a few months ago had a tiny, tiny piece of the ink was missing from the notary stamp. And so therefore the notary person's name was not entirely legible. And so I was going to have to be sent back to redo the whole thing because they couldn't tell if it was an L or a U in this person's name.
Oh
and when I said, I am not doing that, because I had to go like 25 miles between each like courthouse thing, office of whatever. And they said, oh, okay, well, if you refuse, we have a form for this, an illegible notary form, and that you have to sign this under oath that you now take responsible for the possibility that this notary's name might be recorded with the wrong spelling. So,
did you do it?
Or face possible jail time, practically. Yes, I did. So I really put my life on the line.
Wow.
Yeah.
Risking it. Yeah.
I know.
Wow.
So we can always go be civil servants, work behind the counter of recording city legal document recording offices. There's always hope for us.
Unbelievable. But I mean, it's believable. This is the job.
The woman was actually cheerful about it. That was the thing.
Yeah.
She seemed happier in her job than we are in ours.
Maybe we should be. I've often thought that a little bit of power would be good for me. That's the problem now. I don't have any power.
You have power over me.
And I want like absurd power. Like not like a lot, but like over stupid little things, but it actually has a real impact on people's lives. Like the notary thing, like I judge that this ink is insufficient and now, your day is ruined or you're going to jail.
I would have had months ruined. I would to get another copy of this. I would have had to start totally over with this document. Anyway, whatever. Okay. Well, we have a number of things to talk about. We're going to talk about Neil Degrasse Tyson first and foremost, and then we have some other issues we're going to discuss, including something called narcofeminism.
Narcofeminism and homo nationalism. That's a new word I learned today.
Oh.
Yeah.
Homo nationalism.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
It's going to be
I'm in suspense.
An educational experience. It's exactly as exciting as you think it's going to be.
It sounds really exciting.
It's really going to help you understand
intersection.
the world.
It's at the intersection of gay rights and white nationalism.
Nationalism, yeah.
Okay, or any kind of okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's
I actually think that that sounds promising.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, okay. So Neil deGrasse Tyson has been in the news. He has a TikTok channel, as one does if one is an astrophysicist. Where to start? Neil deGrasse Tyson is a celebrity scientist. He for a long time. I mean, I think we're supposed to take him seriously as an astrophysicist. He's been weighing in recently on gender issues, again, as one does, and it's pretty stunning if not brave.
Mm-hmm.
What do you make of this?
Yeah, I wish he would just not talk about this. He doesn't make a lot of sense when he does talk about it, and it's a little bit embarrassing to me because it's, on some level, I feel like Neil deGrasse Tyson is not too far away from my tribe of origin, the new atheists. He's kind of in like the peripheral, like rationalist, science-y person, anti-dogma space. And I mean, he's always been kind of pompous in the way he comes across. I mean, for some people, it doesn't bother them at all. He just seems very sincere, like a sincere nerd who cares a lot about certain things. And then other people he comes across as very pompous. I am kind of in between. I've, never felt too strongly about him one way or the other. I guess it's because I don't feel like at least the things that he talks about in public, they're not like really provocative or like a new insight that we really need. Kind of feels like washed out Carl Sagan, and I guess I'll take Sagan if I needed that in my life. But I've never felt particularly negative towards him either. I think sometimes he gets dragged on Twitter and online for kind of silly little tweets that he has about that I think he thinks are going to be like moving people, but then come across kind of silly. I felt that was unfair at times. But lately he's been talking a lot about gender. Every, couple of months or so, something comes out, some interview comes out where somebody brings up gender, and Neil deGrasse Tyson shares his views, which I just think are so embarrassing and thoughtless and, misleading, truly, that I feel like somebody needs to have a word with him, like somebody in the scientist community.
Yeah, somebody other than Chloe Cole, the detransitioner who's been speaking out against him. Poor Chloe Cole does not need to do all the heavy lifting.
No. She had a video
refutations.
She had a video that was going around on Twitter a couple of days ago from the recording of this episode. So I guess 10 days ago. And she was just going through the video that he had and refuting his comments, which were just really silly. And it was just kind of an absurd thing. I don't know why I'm watching it. I think you're right. This kid, here's this kid speaking common sense to a grown man who really shouldn't be doing what he's doing. So that was interesting, and we wanted to talk about that. And then I started looking at more Neil deGrasse Tyson videos of gender and his like comments on gender, and boy, was that a ridiculous rabbit.
Yeah, so you pulled up an interview that he did with Ben Shapiro 2 years ago, and it's actually a very good kind of, it gives a lot of background and context for where Neil deGrasse Tyson is coming from on this. So to be clear, these are not his TikTok videos. This is from a Ben Shapiro conversation. Why don't we play a couple of clips from this and discuss them? How does that sound?
Yeah, let's do it.
People express themselves on a spectrum. So you learn that.
That's a social point, not a scientific point.
It's
meaning we express ourselves
hold on.
Based in different languages. Is that something you teach in science class, or is that something that you teach when you're teaching language?
So whether the fact that people want to express themselves on a spectrum, on a gender spectrum, whether that fact is something you want to put in a sociology class or in a science class, maybe that remains to be determined. But it is a real fact about real society.
Well, of course, nobody's denying that people identify how they want to identify.
So
the question is, what is the relationship of that to biology? Meaning that the argument is made that trans women are women, for example. And what that seems to mean is that trans women are identical to women. Now, if people want to say trans women are not biological women, obviously that is the case. But people don't seem to want to say that, although that is obviously scientifically true. Trans women are not biological women. Biological women are biological women.
But where are you going with this? What are you trying to accomplish by asking yourself, is it science or is it not science?
Where are we going with this? Why do we have to talk about this at all? Why do you bring it up? Why do you bring it up every week? Why?
Why do you care? Why do you care?
Because
Why?
I'm transphobic bigot. That's why I care, Sarah. Because I want these people. I want to erase their existence. I want to deny them their humanity.
Megan, you know you're
That's
saying
why I
that,
care.
and your enemies are you gonna take that clip and spread it around everywhere? By enemies,
Well,
I mean me. And
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're my number one enemy. But why? Yeah. Which is exactly, yes. We shouldn't be talking about this because what will our enemies do with it?
Well, it was a little infuriating watching that clip, and I recommend listening to the whole 10-minute segment that's on YouTube, and we'll link to it in the show notes if people want to get a fuller version of the conversation, but it doesn't improve. Neil's comments don't improve from there. It's just this sort of waffling around the central question, which Ben Shapiro brings up and says, well, what we're discussing is whether what you say you are, whether gender has, a meaningful, it means anything in terms of biological sex, and what's the relationship in order for society to decide the extent to which gender should override sex. Seems very clear to me why we want to know. It seems very clear to me why we're asking these questions. And it's hard to even begin the conversation when somebody, can't answer that very obvious question in their heads already. You know what I mean?
It's such a weird thing to hear from a scientist.
Right. Why do you
care? Why do you want to know?
Except for the areas in which I think that we might
for
find
me,
out
but not
something.
For thee. Yeah. It is such an indication of some kind of capture. Mm-hmm. Neil Degrasse Tyson doesn't seem to be interested in science. He's interested in being a public figure. He's interested in being a celebrity.
Anyone says that. Anytime anyone says that, it's a really good phrase to pay attention to. Why do you want to know, or why do you care?
Yeah.
Because the truth, it shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter what my intentions are in order for the truth to be the truth. In order for us to, as a society, to care about what the truth is, it really doesn't matter where I'm coming from, because the consequences can be very different from what I'm trying to achieve with knowing the truth. And in this case, it matters a lot that, that this new conception of gender is overriding sex, that people are, asking for rights that, quote unquote rights that we've never granted anyone in the past, that people are modifying their bodies. Young people are modifying their bodies. Young people are modifying, their development, their natural development in a way that cannot be undone. So this seems like, these seem like good whys. These seem like great whys.
And this is what frustrates me so much with this conversation, because there's the rights piece of this. We can talk about human rights. We can talk about how trans rights sort of falls under human rights. But really, most of us, most of the time, are talking about this separate phenomenon, which has to do with entirely new cohorts of people coming up and confusing gender dysphoria or other kinds of psychological distress with actually having a trans identity or being a transsexual. These are totally separate things. We're not really having a conversation about rights. I think everybody agrees that all humans should be protected under the Equal Protection Clause, which they are. But apparently Neil deGrasse Tyson is not even aware of what's actually happening in schools, in gender, in medicine for young people.
So there's a new element of this. There's a new element of the rights.
And frankly, it's not that new anymore. I'm getting a little tired of this was just 5 minutes ago that these kids started to say this. It's been, 6 or 7 years now.
Yeah.
It really has been.
Yeah.
Should we play another clip?
Sure.
Okay.
I think the concern is if you study some topic that's a hot button topic and you bring scientific methods and tools to it, we don't trust, I'm interpreting here, I think we as a society don't trust that people in charge in a free country won't try to legislate something that will constrict people's freedoms in the face of that information. I think that's the fear.
Well, isn't that...
It's a fear.
I mean, and isn't that...
We don't trust our own ability to govern ourselves in the face of what could be some information relative to other kinds of information.
Isn't that a bit of a problem?
Yes. Yeah. It's not. It means it's not a free society. It's not a society of free inquiry, which I think you need ultimately. But
my general take on all of this stuff, from climate change to gender dysphoria to all of these issues, is bring out the science and then let's hash it out. I think that the problem I'm seeing on a lot of sides is...
What is your motivation?
People can't be trusted with the truth. They can't handle the truth.
We should have free inquiry. The best part is that he contradicts himself. It would be great if we had free inquiry. Unfortunately, sometimes what people find out with free inquiry alarms them so much that they take action. But imagine this applying to any other scenario, imagine that we found out that there was something that some drug, some health, forget about gender, but some health related drug that we were giving to kids. And it turns out that it's stunting them terribly. It turns out that it's giving them lifelong health consequences. We would want to know. And yes, maybe the response by governments would be to no longer allow parents to give children those drugs. And I say that that's a good thing. Of course, it cannot be the case that we decide ahead of time what we don't want to know in case what we find out puts us in a position where we feel like we have to legislate what's going on.
Right.
That's such an absurd, backwards way of thinking. I can't even truly put myself in these shoes, because I think that the only way he can come to this conclusion is if he believes in his heart that he already knows what's going on. He already knows what's happening. He already knows the consequences of what's happening. And he is so sure of the fact that he already possesses this truth that he can predict that to let it go on will not have any serious consequences for society and indeed for the people who are trapped in this logic to begin with.
Yeah. Okay, let's listen to one more clip, and then I think that dovetails nicely into what you just said. So
if you bring out all the science and the politicians hash it out, the history of that exercise is a recipe for disaster if it involves discoveries that put people's freedom as defined in our Constitution at risk.
But now you're arguing for limitations on areas of particular study.
No, I'm arguing on we need a way to we need a way to protect people's freedoms in the face of whatever gets discovered scientifically.
So
I'll give it.
I agree. I think that's what the Constitution is for, is to guard rights from.
But we're always fighting people who want rights are always fighting others who are saying they don't get the rights from the Constitution. This is a daily challenge on the progressive left.
The fact that he says this is a daily challenge on the progressive left really tells you something. So are we to interpret from that Neil deGrasse Tyson represents the progressive left and assumes that anybody who is part of the cognoscenti kind of NPR caring about the science crowd is in the progressive left.
Yeah, there's a lot that's going on there. There are a lot of assumptions that need to be unpacked, I guess. But
you sound like an academic. Let's unpack that.
God.
Let's unpack this. So this whole "you can't trust the people" thing. I mean, we saw that with the pandemic. It's not just this, and it's complicated. We can't trust the people to understand, that we're figuring this out as we go. But in the meantime, we need to get everybody vaccinated, no matter who they are, under what circumstances, and we need everybody staying in their house. And we need because otherwise, they're not going to understand the layers of complexity. I think that this is what drives me the most crazy about any kind of like public discourse, especially when it comes to medicine or science, is that there's an utter infantilization of the people and just an utter lack of faith in their ability to like walk and chew gum at the same time. And this is a perfect example.
Yeah. And no wonder that, people who listen to this, so this is Ben Shapiro's audience, right? But it's no wonder that people who listen to scientists say things like this think, maybe I don't trust, quote unquote, the science. And what they're saying there is not that they don't trust the scientific method. They're almost never saying that. They're saying they don't trust people who call themselves scientists, who say they speak for science, and they are the mouth of science, right? Instead of the mouth of God, the way prophets would have been, they're the mouths of science. And they have judged that this is information too sensitive for the people to be able to grapple with, as well as Neil can, and come away. But the truth is, like, all that might happen is that we might grapple with it and come to different conclusions than Neil. That doesn't mean that we're wrong. That doesn't mean, that this is a problem. That's what democracy is. And it's incredible to me that he would even shield himself from knowing the truth, because it's not even that he thinks he knows the truth of what's going on with gender. He thinks he understands what's going on enough that he feels confident enough to be on this side and to be publicly talking about and, not looking too deeply into this as a scientific issue. But he doesn't know, right? And so there's a sense of like in personal infallibility, and
yes,
alongside infantilizing everybody else.
But how much of it also is professional self-protection? So so this was 2 years ago. But it's notable that he has not changed his tune since then. If anything, he's doubled down. Like, okay, let's think about this. What would be the consequences if somebody like Neil deGrasse Tyson were to come out with more gender critical statements? Richard Dawkins is doing that.
Yeah.
And what are the repercussions for him right now?
I mean, it's Richard Dawkins has become a demon in the community that he led for a very long time. And by that, I mean the atheist secular community. It's like he had an award taken away from him that was given to him by the American Humanist Association. I forget which year, but it was given to him quite a ways back as like Humanist of the Year or something, and they rescinded the award because of some tweet that he made that had to do with gender and being critical of gender. And it was so alarming to see that happen. As somebody who's been within this community for a long time, who was a leader in an organization within this community, that these are the facts and science people. They think of themselves as the voice of reason, while everybody, the other side, the Christian nationalist conservatives are Bible thumpers. They're unreasonable. They're dogmatic. They don't think things through. And we're the rationalist science guys. And to see them turn around like this, it was just a huge black pill for me for a very long time. And I think it's inspired a lot of nihilism, because, you think you leave religion and you have landed upon a better shore, a more enlightened shore, and here are people who seem to care a lot about what is true in the world. They seem to care about, you know, rationalism and free inquiry. They make all the right noises. And it seems that for a time that is true. But then suddenly there's an issue in which their politics, you know, their sort of political sympathies don't align with free inquiry and rationalism and science. And suddenly things get distorted so quickly. I mean, it's such a shame. It's such a shame that more people are not like Richard Dawkins. I mean, I think he's truly shown himself to be incredibly brave. Like, it takes a lot of bravery to say something that, you know, your own people are going to be taking knives and stabbing you in the back, because that's exactly what's happening. All the hashtag atheist, the people in the, you know, atheism in their bio, those guys
in this house we don't believe. Yes, they should have an atheist yard sign.
Those people are saying that Dawkins is a monster right now, and it's incredible that he's willing to just stand up for what he believes is true so openly. And it's pretty damning and pathetic that Neil deGrasse Tyson is walking around in circles like this.
Tyson strikes me as just not having kept up. He doesn't seem insincere. He seems misinformed. I mean,
how long can you say misinformed though? It's been years.
I know.
It's been years.
So, I mean, the thing is, like, Neil deGrasse Tyson and, you know, the sort of scientific community that sort of sprang into the public view maybe 20 years ago, even 30 years ago. I don't know how long Tyson has been around. At that time, the party of anti-science was the Republican Party. They were reacting to the conservative movement, which was very much like against sort of, that was the anti-rationalist crowd, right? You know,
it was the creationists. I remember those battles. I was part of those battles. You know,
intelligent design versus evolution. Yeah. So I mean, the entire like public, the entire framing of Tyson as a public figure has to do with pushing back against conservative, anti-science kind of mentalities and bringing science to the masses. He was never supposed to be like, you know, the most serious, you know, he was a communicator. He was a celebrity. He was somebody who could metabolize complex information. He was an astrophysicist of all things, and make it popular for the people. He's sort of, you know, it's a version of Bill Nye the Science Guy. Okay. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. And so it may just be that we put too much stock in these people. Do we expect too much? I mean, is it possible that Neil deGrasse Tyson was never an intellectual in any way, shape, or form? I don't know.
I think you're right about that, and you have a point. But there's also the fact that you don't need to be an intellectual to not say the things that he's saying. It's not, you know, this actually isn't rocket science.
You have to be observant just a little bit.
There's some basic logical flaws in his argumentation that even he could pick out, that anyone could pick out, that the average person could pick out. That he's refusing to do so for political reasons. But I think it's really interesting the way you phrase that he became popular because of his opposition to conservative, anti-science, you know, like creationist type movements. It's interesting that it's come to light because of this issue, how many people who were in that movement were against the anti-science part, and how many people were against the conservatives. You know what I mean? Like what was the main motivator there? Was it the fact that they were anti-science, or was it the fact that there were conservatives and you don't like them because of any reasons, but now you have a good reason, right?
I mean,
and I think that it's truly like embarrassing and disheartening to see so many people from these, you know, secular, atheist, humanist spaces turn out to be just anti-right wing. Like, they just hate the conservatives. They just hate the right, and anything the right says yes to, they're going to say no to, which is it's the spirit of being a reactionary. Truly, it shows that you really have no politics save for participating in a tribe and in a team sport, that there are no principles,
or you have
that
only
also
politics.
align with it. Or right,
you have only politics. You
politics
don't have
divorced
principles.
from principles, right?
Yes.
Like the ideal politics are both principles and a tribe coming together. But in this case, I think what we are seeing is only a tribe. And it's awful.
And it really shows the degree to which if you want to be a celebrity and remain a celebrity, you still have to walk this walk. We do have people like Dawkins speaking out. We are slowly seeing, some people in the more academic space, even if they've been cast out of academia, like Kathleen Stock. We are seeing authors, kind of people in the more, the thought leader space. They're kind of tiptoeing.
They're dipping their toes
into
in
the gender conversation. But if you want to maintain a foothold in the pop culture, there's no way in hell you're going to do it. Right. Neil deGrasse Tyson is a pop culture figure.
Right.
More than a science figure.
Right.
So I think this is a very clear example of that. I mean, I've always thought he was kind of full of shit. I never liked his whole demeanor. It just seemed very bullshitty to me. But
I've never watched him enough. I watched the Cosmos series. I thought it was good, but Sagan did it better. And it was kind of like how I felt with the new Willy Wonka movie with, Johnny Depp's version. And I love Johnny Depp, but, and Tim Burton, but I wish they hadn't done it because the original was good and they didn't need to. Yeah. I don't know why you did that. I kind of felt the same way with Cosmos, although it was part of it was really good, and it did need to be brought into the new century. But it was interesting that they chose Neil deGrasse Tyson to do it. I thought that he wasn't maybe the best choice.
Well, look, I mean, I'm just going to say it. And I don't think this is, I think that this actually, I'm not sure how much this says or doesn't say about his abilities, but I think people are excited to have like a black guy on there talking about astrophysics. It's great.
Yeah,
I mean, it's fantastic. And if he were a white guy, would he even be here talking about this stuff? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, well, so it's not that he's an intelligent person. He communicates well. Is he extremely exceptional? Is he a substitute for Carl Sagan? No, but those are.
But I don't. Maybe people think Carl Sagan was bullshit too. I don't know. I mean, it was before my time.
Scientists didn't love Carl Sagan because they actually didn't. They didn't think that. I mean, there was some pushback against Sagan at the time that he was sort of doing this popularizing of science, because scientists felt that it was good that they were, not having a conversation with the public. It's maybe that's a topic for another episode. But what's incredible about Carl Sagan, when you listen to him talk about, the universe and all of that, and this you could hear him almost say the substance could be exactly the same as what someone like Neil deGrasse. Degrassi or deGrasse? I keep saying.
I think it's deGrasse.
DeGrasse, yeah.
Yes, no relation to Degrassi High.
Yeah, that's where I'm getting it from, because I watched
Canadian
that
series.
Yeah. Anyway, whatever. But when you hear Carl Sagan speak about these things, you feel that he is humbled by what he notices in the world. That he is talking about these amazing things. And he's not saying, I am humbled. You can just tell that he is humbled.
He's in awe.
From the way that he positions himself in relation to the cosmos. With Tyson, you kind of get the opposite. You get the idea that he's not very humble at all. And maybe it's just a matter of clumsy phrasing. Like maybe some of us just need like public communication.
I mean, look, I think it's his temperament, and I'm actually thinking like, is that a kind of temperament that translates more to pop culture. I don't know about that, because there's a lot of people who are enthusiastic, but with humility, like Anthony Bourdain or somebody, I think managed to thread that needle. So I don't
Anthony
think you can say you have to be
extremely arrogant, but in a good way.
But in a way, but not like let me tell you how it is kind of way. He was showing you. He's like, I'm going to show you how this is.
Yeah,
I'm going to talk to this person and show you. And I just think Tyson is like, it's a personality thing, and some people respond to it and some people don't. I just happen to not.
Yeah, I don't like that he's groomed into the Carl Sagan role, like that he's the new Carl Sagan. It kind of offends me.
Yeah, I think he strikes me as a lightweight, and I say that as somebody who knows nothing about his fields of study. So I take that with a grain of salt. But,
look, you don't need to be a heavyweight to not say what he's saying, though. I mean, you just don't need to be. So I can't excuse it. I can't find an excuse for it. Because also, even if you're
right.
Are we geniuses? No, we can be, here we are, idiots.
I get dumber every day.
Idiots, right about everything.
But I mean, also, wonder how you feel about this, because the gender thing, part of the reason it's so fascinating is it's a tapestry. There are so many things going on at once. Yeah. There's medicine, there's psychology, there's pop culture, there's autism stuff, there's social media, there's social contagion. It's like a billion things. Yeah. And so if you're going to even begin to absorb it enough to talk about it accurately, you have to kind of have a hand in all those things. Like, I'm not sure that somebody who talks about astrophysics all the time is he even in a position to get this?
What he can do, and what I think is a fair thing for anyone to do, is to pull apart that one strand that they understand and reason there. I don't think that you need if I'm a biologist, I don't need to understand social contagion. Like, I don't need to understand.
But at least you're a biologist. You're not talking about the planets.
Right. Right. Well, so Richard Dawkins speaks from his perspective as an evolutionary biologist about about sex and gender from that perspective. And he speaks accurately because that's something he knows how to do. I feel like there's a basic logic that anyone can sort of parse through. And we see in this interview, Ben Shapiro parsing through. Ben
Shapiro was excellent in this interview, I have to say. I don't watch him ever, and I was really impressed.
I know. He was good, and he didn't. And he wasn't rude or anything. I expected him to.
I mean, at least in this clip, I don't know. I would. There's more. It's so frustrating because the people that we have to make understand about this issue are the people on the left. It's not the people watching Ben Shapiro.
Yeah.
It's not the people watching Megyn Kelly. I mean, there was an interesting, Helen Joyce was on Megyn Kelly a few weeks ago. Helen Joyce, the author of Trans, which is this excellent, extremely rigorous, comprehensive book about this ideology. And Megyn Kelly, who had discovered, she said something like, "Oh my gosh, you were booked on the show and I delayed you for a few days because when I actually sat down to read the book, I was so blown away. It's so amazing." And Megyn Kelly says, "I'm more excited to interview you. You are my hero. I'm more excited to interview you than I would be to interview Jennifer Aniston."
Oh, wow.
She's just fangirling all over Helen Joyce. And Helen Joyce is saying, "Oh, well, Megyn, right back at you. I'm such a fan and I'm happy to be here." And look, I have
what are you
supposed
to
Helen
say?
Joyce.
What are you supposed to say? Though?
I actually like Megyn Kelly.
Okay, if Megyn Kelly said that to you, what would you say? You would say, "Right back at you, girl." That's what you would say.
Here's the problem. That Helen Joyce is excellent on this topic. She was excellent on the interview. I watched the whole thing. It was great. I'm really not throwing shade on either of them. I like Megyn Kelly. I profiled her for Vogue. I actually met her in person. I spent time with her. I like her personally very much. This is not going to help anything. I feel like if Helen Joyce had just said, "I'm so glad to hear that, Megyn. I can't wait to have this conversation," it might have just helped slightly. Because all this is doing now is my book club lady friends who don't understand this topic at all. next time I say, hey, why don't you read this Helen Joyce book? There's a chance that they're going to say, oh, is she the one that was fawning all over Megyn Kelly?
Well, that's
no thanks. It's terrible, but here's where we are.
I did this for all of my life up until, now, until walking away from activism, which is, how do you walk the line between getting the word out about a cause you care about and not putting yourself in a position where the people who need to hear your message will hear it, will be apt to hear it, to actually listen and won't dismiss you right away. And to be honest, I don't know what the answer is, and I don't know if there is an answer. I did my best. I didn't give interviews to Fox. I didn't go on Fox News. I could have done all of it. I could have done the whole conservative circuit. And I was very careful to limit myself as much as possible. Unless I, knew the reporter, I would not even agree to an interview, because I was thinking in my head, if I get co-opted, that word co-opted by the right, then they will distort my message. And not only will it be that the left doesn't listen to me anymore, but it will also be the case that the message becomes one that I no longer agree with, or the political consequences of the message will become such that I wouldn't want that consequence myself. So it's better not to say anything there at all. But that was my calculus. But the position that I was in was, either you talk to this conservative person or you talk to no one. Because
I get it, but we're not catching the book club ladies.
Right. But maybe we
have
won't.
to get to
you know
them.
what I mean? I think maybe we won't, because I don't think I think I did all the right things. And it's notable that I feel that if I had been less careful, my message would have gotten out much, much, much farther. Not just that, obviously, personally would have benefited me. Not that I wanted that, but I think the message would have spread a lot farther than it actually did. And even in a good way, even in a way that I might have agreed with. I think when you put people in a position where either they have no stage or they're on the wrong stage, we can't complain when they choose the wrong stage.
No, I know. I don't want to be that. I don't
because-
want to be that person. I don't want to be the media rounds police. But
I just don't know how else to proceed. The truth is,
I
I just don't know how else to proceed. I don't know how else to do it. And in this case, it's very clear to me. So in the Islam case, it was a little different in that I was trying to make change within the Muslim community. So the Muslim community was not my enemy, even though, that was the same community that was persecuting ex-Muslim. They're still not my enemy. They're my family and friends. So the decision to not go on Fox News was, I think, a far more wise one in that context. In this case, there are children who are going to have their bodies and lives destroyed. There are a lot of vulnerable people who are about to be hurt, who are being hurt. At this very moment, they are being hurt in an irreparable way. We are, as a society, figuring out how much stake to put into a social construction, gender, and whether we will allow it to overtake the force that reality poses. And if we walk down this path, there are a lot of horrors coming up that have nothing to do with gender. But once you say reality doesn't matter, how I perceive reality to be matters. That's what matters more than what's actually true. We're headed in a really dangerous, direction. So in this case, I think that get the word out, and mobilize people however you can. I am done trying to chase liberals and trying to tell them it doesn't matter if a bad guy agrees with this. It's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have to say this. If I have to say this, then they're not good people. They're not actually, I don't even know how emotionally connected I feel with the left, the progressive left at all anymore, because I think the more you have to convince people, look, guilt by association is nonsense. Let's figure out what's true. Let's figure out what's right. It doesn't matter if a bad guy holds that view. The more you have to tell people this, the more they lose that, in my eyes, the more they feel as if they're operating on a moral plane that, it may not even be a moral plane, that they're actually operating in a plane that has nothing to do with morality. And I don't know if I agree with that. And I don't know if I want to be on the same side as those people.
I think it's going to be up to the quote unquote gay community to rise to the occasion and take this up. And I think we're starting to see it. And I think that is what will probably move the needle for much of the progressive left, because they will listen to gay people. Yeah, there was a really interesting conversation on a recent episode of Louise Perry's podcast with an Indian filmmaker named, I'm going to butcher this, Vaishnavi Sundar, who had made a number of films. She's interested in feminism. That's been kind of her area. She has a film called Dysphoric that has to do with why women are choosing a trans identity in places like India. And it's really fascinating. And they talked about how if you're, for instance, a very effeminate man, even though it's not technically against the law to be gay in India, the fact is that most of the country is very poor, rural communities. And if you are perceived as effeminate, it's easier to kind of transition into this hijra role, for instance, which maybe you can talk a little bit about if you know about.
So this is the hijra who exist in they're I guess the phrase is third gender, except it's not even accurate to put it in any kind of gender terms in a way that would map onto what the West conceives, because nobody in South Asia thinks that hijras are women. Nobody thinks that.
This is like the Fa'afafine. Right? Yeah. Isn't that in Samoa? Yeah.
Nobody thinks that they are biologically female or that they are in any way true females. Like, they are kind of set apart from normal society, which is binary. So they're here, people who don't fit into this binary, they're kind of cast as this like other, you go over there in your own separate space, away from us. It's not this like acceptance of a spectrum of human behavior. It's a way of really incorporating feminine men and homosexual men into society in a way that is not catastrophic, in a way that's not, murdering them brutally, like and it's not
or
great
getting
either.
their family or punishing their family. I mean, families can be killed for having family members. Like
it's a way for them to scrape a living, to have. There's a kind of a, we agree upon this status and you can have it and stay away from us, and we'll keep the peace as it. So it's a way of incorporating homosexuality, particularly of gay males, into society in a way that is not like Iran terrible. Although they have an interesting solution as well. But
Iran is the most trans-friendly country in the world. Don't you know?
That's what
we're going to start to have medical tourism, gender medicine tourism to Iran. Actually, don't joke.
We can see this in societies all over the world, right? Like there are two reproductive roles. We all understand that there are two reproductive roles. We in most societies there is a kind of a social set of expectations and behaviors that are attached to each sex, and they're not arbitrary. I have to say this because one of my frustrations with the feminist conversation here is to say that they are totally arbitrary because they are socially assigned. They're not totally arbitrary. They're related to our biological roles in a way that society has deemed optimum for its, for reproduction, for bringing up children, for, safety, for keeping the peace. There are a lot of reasons that we develop the social norms that we do. and they're not arbitrary just because they're there. And it's the case that you can see throughout the history of the world. You can see throughout the history of humanity, various civilizations attempting to deal with the fact that in reality, the people of either sex may or may not totally align with what the general disposition is of that sex, and so they deal with it in different ways. And this is how India is dealing with it. It's not actually optimum. It has nothing to do with trans people, really, because they're not claiming that they're women. And no, and actually, she
had some interesting things to say about women. Yeah, so she was also talking about how if you're lesbian, there is no sort of hedra category for women, right? So if you're a lesbian and you're looking at being married off and a life of doing nothing but bearing children, transitioning is going to be hugely appealing. And so we are seeing that. I mean, it's so interesting too, the way I feel like up until very recently, the line about this entire movement and conversation was, oh, this is only happening to white, affluent people in the West, and people with too much time on their hands, and they're looking at social media, and this is coming out of Tumblr, and et cetera, et cetera. But this is spreading out all over the world.
It tends to happen with Western culture is imperialist,
right? But I wonder, are these girls in India in a rural village, like looking at Tumblr? Where are they getting this?
That's not how. These ideas spread in strange and interesting ways, and all that there's a certain kind of context that an idea needs in order to just spread like wildfire in a specific community. And there's a reason that in Iran, suddenly transgenderism is super accepted. There's a reason that happened. And that's because in that specific environment, there's such extreme intolerance towards homosexuality that this was in fact, to say that actually you're just the wrong, like something happened to you biologically and that's why you're a woman that's trying to kiss other women. And we need to handle this as a medical problem. In that society, that idea just, the Ayatollah believed it. That's what happened. The Ayatollah believed it, and then he sanctioned it everywhere. And now this is the way that they are tackling homosexuality in that country. So it's gonna spread in some places really quickly, less so in others. It is. What's interesting about it is that we're going to see more and more of these kinds of discussions come up as we become better able to modify our bodies in very extreme ways, as we are, able to truly change our own development, and so we're sort of entering this transhumanism space. I think we're going to have, and as that becomes cheap, as that becomes affordable to the average person, in anywhere in the world, in a small town somewhere where the pressures to be a certain way if you're a woman or be a certain way if you're a man are extremely strong. Once hormones become available to you and you have this idea that there is another legal status that could provide you with more freedom, perhaps you take it. It might even
making money. Who's selling the hormones?
It might spread much faster in some of these more traditional parts of the world.
Yeah. Sometimes I think maybe I should do a little exercise where I try to spend an entire day thinking that I'm on the wrong side of this gender thing. I'm going to make myself spend the entire day in the mind of somebody who sees this as the future. This is inevitable. I'm not saying it's today. Not today. I could start anytime. I could do this anytime.
You should
not
do
today,
it.
Not tomorrow.
You should do it, and then you should report back what you found.
Okay. Yeah. A day of cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
It's like
the whole day
national holiday. I think we should have a national holiday of cognitive dissonance where everyone just takes the day off from work and tries to convince themselves of something other than what they actually think and feel.
I did debate back in school, And one of the, like, for a very short period of time, but it was an incredible experience. I was good at it and I enjoyed it. And I felt that even a minimal kind of introduction to debate might be the thing that we could do, that we could introduce in schools that would have a true value that lasts well beyond, young adult or old.
Steel manning.
Because when we're talking about things like, okay, what are the things you learn in social studies, 6th grade social studies class? You learn about the Native Americans and where they lived and what their names were, and he's a Delaware tribe and whatever. How much of this do you remember?
We don't you remember what Sarah Rao said? We don't learn anything about the Native Americans.
I learned, well, she didn't, but I actually had teachers who were they were well versed in CRT and informed me in all the proper ways. But I mean, I remember learning all these very interesting things in school, and there's a debate as to which the extent to what we learn in school remains in our within our working memory when we are adults, and how long does it stay there? And it's interesting to me that we don't really think about these questions when we talk about the value of education. There's just this idea that, well, of course it's super valuable and important. Well, if it is, then if I gave you, Megan, a test, 6th grade science, 6th grade social studies, 6th grade math, how well would you think that you would fare? You would ace 6th grade English. Yes.
All I could think, my 6th grade social studies teacher had Nazi uniforms on display as part of our lesson. He was, I think he was a World War II vet, or maybe Korean War. No, I think he might have been a Korean War vet. No, okay. And so he was like really into the study of war. He was really into military history. So I remember he has a collection of military uniforms from the various wars and different sides, including Nazi uniforms, and he would bring them in and put them on display as part of our lesson. And I remember them being there for like most of a semester.
Okay, so you would remember
that. I do remember that.
But when it comes to the actual tests of knowledge and information, how well do you think you would be able to do? Truly?
I think I aced the Nazi test.
It's a lesson worth learning. It's a lesson worth taking with you, and I think it does go with you, even if you don't remember the specific topics that you debated. You remember after taking, after going through it a few times, what it feels like to walk in the shoes of, like, imagine yourself as somebody, because you have to, when you're doing debate, you have to prepare for the affirmative case and the negative case. You have to fully be prepared to take on either, because it's a toss of the coin as to what you'll have to defend in the scenario of a tournament. So you have to be equally prepared with both sides. And it's a real mindfuck, like, to be able to do that well. It's a whoa, like, oh my God, like the first couple of times you do it and then you become good at it. And I think it teaches you some really important lessons about how to approach, complex issues and how to separate your, emotions out of it. And speaking of debates, I'm going to be back at it on a big stage. This is an incredible event
in
LA.
This is an incredible event.
I don't know.
I don't know either. I don't know what you've gotten yourself into.
I'm going to make a fool of myself in front of so many people. No. It's a huge theater. It's gorgeous. I looked at pictures of this theater. It's this. What's it at the Ace Hotel?
It's at the Ace Hotel in downtown Los Angeles on September 13th. We should say. What else
I'm going to be debating with the sexual revolution, whether it has failed or not. And I'm going to be defending it. I'm going to be defending the sexual.
Yeah, I don't know how you ended up on the wrong side. Speaking of which,
so my opponent is going to be Louise Perry, who comes up on this podcast.
Well, you've got
two
opponents.
I really like her.
Got two. There's two. These are teams. So you and this obviously Grimes is your debate partner. That's a no-brainer. You and Grimes. Together again.
That's exactly what you would imagine. You would imagine the two of us together. I think it's gonna be great. I'm
you
are
on the
part.
You
that
are on the
I'm
con side. Okay, so was the sexual revolution a failure? Is that the resolved? What is the? I can't remember the exact writing. Okay, and you are arguing that it was not a failure.
Right. I'm the negative case. Like I'm on the because the resolution is that it has failed. Or something like that. So Louise Perry and Anna
Kotchin,
crazy
from Red
last
Scare.
name, right?
Yeah.
Anna from Red Scare is, and if you listen to the show, there's Dasha and there's Anna, and Dasha's the actress, and Anna's tends to be, more well read.
She's a powerhouse.
Actually, I like Dasha too.
Yeah, this is going to be. I can't wait.
Yeah,
we should say this is being put on by the Free Press. Barry Weiss is going to be the moderator.
Yeah.
And this is a real debate. This isn't just like a conversation. This is a real debate, right?
We're
with
gonna have
timed
statements, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and back and forth and rebuttals, and then I think there's going to be some. The audience will be able to participate. Like, we'll be able to ask us questions.
Oh, good, because I'm going to be in the audience. I'm going to be in the audience. So
Megan, you better be. I'm planting you as you're my plant, and you have to be in there and ask me a question that is calculated to make me seem brilliant. That's the way we have to play this.
So I should be like, how do I use a Google Doc?
Okay.
Because I know Sarah knows the answer to this question.
All right. Well,
I'd be like, how do I, why do you have to use this management tool again?
Oh my God.
I have this is more a comment than a question.
Yeah.
I think your way of doing things makes no sense. Why can't you use email like a normal person? Yeah. That's what
anyway. You guys should come because it will be fun regardless of what actually happens. I actually think I have a good case. Although I do feel that the winds are against me. You know what I mean? Like the tide is such that people are just sick of all this choice.
You're making
sick of
the other side is the obvious side. I bet you got the more counterintuitive.
I actually I have both what has been the status quo for a very long time, but also the thing that is unpopular in the minds of many people because the winds are shifting. So I think I have a tougher case, but I think I can make it. And I think we'll see. We'll see. I don't know how we're going to all work together on stage. That's for sure. I'm worried the Red Scare person is going to be mean to me.
Why? We love Red Scare. Yeah,
but that doesn't mean she's going to love me. And also, I don't know how much. I listen to Red Scare a lot. I do enjoy them. I enjoy them. I don't agree with them. Much of the time, and sometimes they say dumb things, but. I listen to the podcast, but I think that they're also the they're the kind of girls I would avoid in high school. You know what I mean? Because I could just instinctively feel like they're gonna see me as like too sincere, and it's gonna be it's gonna be.
They're like everybody I went to college with.
Oh,
those girls.
Everybody.
Everybody.
You went to a terrible college. Why
yes,
did you go
I
there?
did. Yes, I did. That is correct.
Well,
okay, well, that's exciting. And if that's not enough for you, people, September 30th in Denver, we are having an Unspeakeasy one-day retreat. Oh. Are we done promoting your thing? Can we promote my thing for 1 second?
Yeah,
okay,
well,
1 second.
For 1 second.
The Unspeakeasy one-day retreat in Denver, Saturday, September 30th. And we're going to have a co-ed evening event right after that with comedy, and tickets are available for that.
Co-ed.
For everybody. Woo! You don't have to be a woman to go to that. So theunspeakeasy.com, Denver, September 30th. So come to LA, come to the debate on the 13th, hang out, make a quick hop to Denver on the 30th. Just make a month of it. All right. Well, I think we've actually covered a lot.
We have. And what are we doing in the bonus? We're talking about we're going to educate everybody.
Yeah, including ourselves. We're talking about narcofeminism.
Yeah, that's going to be good.
As opposed to anarcho-feminism, which is a totally different thing.
Yeah.
Anarcho, Yeah. So if you want to hear the bonus, what do? They subscribe.
You have to subscribe at a specialplace.substack.com. That's where we're accepting subscriptions at the moment. We'll have other options later. But if you want access to the feed, to the subscribers only feed and the subscribers only video, that's how you get to it. So
and you can continue to ask us questions for our advice segment.
Yeah, we just did our advice segment and it was super fun.
Yeah,
and we haven't released it yet, so I'm waiting to hear how much everybody.
Well, by the time you guys hear this,
hated or loved it.
The subscribers got a special
special treat
with Penelope Trunk, our returning guest, answering their advice questions. So that's another kind of thing you can get if you subscribe. But we are going to continue to take your questions and address them in the main episode as well. So,
all right. Well, thanks everybody.
Okay.
See you next time.
Everyone. See ya.